What is up, everyone? Ginger here. I'm going to actually go through my list of my programs that I use every day for all of the things that I can do. So let's get started with the photo editing or manipulation programs. I actually use GIMP. I prefer GIMP over Photoshop, and here's why. GIMP, let me open it up real quick. GIMP has a much easier interface for me because I've used it for so long, and it's just much easier for me than Photoshop will ever do. And I think that Photoshop is good because of selection. Photoshop has a really awesome selecting tool that I know is a lot better than GIMP, but I hardly ever use that. I normally just use the path tools to select, and Photoshop has a lot more awesome plugins. That's it. Photoshop doesn't really do much for me more than GIMP does. GIMP works perfect for me. The reason why I've been able to do so many designs with GIMP, because it can do a lot of things that I think people just don't realize. I'm giving this out for people to give it a try and learn how to use it, because it's an awesome tool. You know, that's my personal preference. If you prefer Photoshop over GIMP, that is totally fine. I completely understand. I just have worked with GIMP for so long, and I just know how to use it so much better than I will ever learn how to use Photoshop. It's just, I will use GIMP almost every time over Photoshop. So there's that. That's photo editing manipulations. Graphic design, I will either use GIMP or I'll use Adobe Illustrator. Reason being, because Adobe Illustrator does vector graphics, which means that no matter what you do with the shapes of a design, it will always stay the same no matter how much you expand it or how much you shrink it down. It will always stay the same. The reason why that is because Illustrator does a really good job at pinpointing shapes rather than putting pixels in places. And I'm not sure if it's size efficient as well, because it does coordinates rather than holding in pixels. I'm not entirely sure about that, but I know that you will get much higher quality designs with Adobe Illustrator. So that's what I use for graphic design. I just barely got Adobe Illustrator, so I still have to use it a lot more, but I'm definitely using these on my business cards. I'm definitely using Adobe Illustrator on posters that I do, you know, whatever I need to as far as graphic design. Just I know that no matter what, the quality that Adobe Illustrator will provide will be pretty doggone close to perfect. So there's that. And I was going to show you guys how to actually get these programs if you really wanted to download them. So with GIMP, you go to gimp.org. Simple as that. So then you just go to downloads here, and it's completely free, no purchase necessary. And I think it's harder to get on Macintoshes over Windows, because I really do think that when you install it for or download it for Windows, all you have to do is install. But for Mac, you have to install an extra program to kind of hold the installation or hold the program. I'm not sure how that works exactly, but I think there's an extra step for Macs. And then for Photoshop, which is Adobe, of course, I think everybody knows, just go to adobe.com and pay the freakishly expensive amount of money to get the Adobe product. It's a little higher than I would price these things. I don't know. It's just the way that it's priced right now makes people go, oh, I will never be able to afford this. Like, it's a little easier now because they have Creative Cloud. It's a little easier to kind of do a yearly or monthly thing, but then again, there's also a disadvantage there because you're doing a yearly or monthly thing of which you will never fully finish paying for. Like, it's going to be a constant thing, and that kind of sucks. So unless you're making money off of these Adobe products, I would not suggest purchasing them. For me, it was kind of a leap of faith because I am doing this YouTube channel now and I kind of need the awesome software. If it ever comes down to it, I will maybe, this is not 100% for sure, but maybe I will be canceling Adobe Creative Cloud if it gets to that point where I'm not making enough money to support it. Just be wise with Adobe because I apologize if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, but that's just the way it comes across for me. Do not purchase Adobe if you have no intention of using it for money-making purposes. With any talent, with any skill that you're going to pick up from school, it really depends on your passion, which throws through into your skill or talent. Like, you just need to really practice and get really good at it, and then it'll bring revenue. So, but you know, of course, after the business end of it really initiates, then you will start creating revenue. But what I'm trying to get at is, if you're going to go that route, make absolute sure that it's what you want to do for a living, because otherwise you are going to be going crazy all the time, making things that you never enjoy. Like, it's just don't. As far as Adobe, if you don't know how to use it and aren't creative, don't do it. Just don't. So there's that. So after graphic design, we're now going to go into web coding and development. And with that, I do Aptana Studio 3. I just went over Aptana Studio 3 in a tutorial of mine, and it is by far one of the best coding programs that I've picked up on, because it really helps me with connecting to servers and automatically saving files to the server rather than just having it on the disk, because with that I have to go in, download the file, edit it, and then upload it again, and that's just very tedious when you have a lot of files that you're editing. So Aptana Studio 3 is my savior. Another program that I think a lot of people use, I just haven't really dived into it enough to know if it's close to what I'm using now or the same. If it's the same, I won't touch it obviously, but if it's more than it's what I'm using now, then I will probably go that route. But it's called Eclipse. I will open the website for both of these. So let's go ahead back to the browser, and I'm just gonna Google, because I'm not exactly sure what Aptana Studio 3's URL is. So I'm just gonna Google Aptana Studio 3, and it's aptana.com/studio. And this is where you would download Aptana Studio 3. For Eclipse, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to search it. So yeah, eclipse.org. It's kind of the same thing for GIMP. So eclipse.org, GIMP.org, they both have .org, so it kind of makes sense. And they're both open source. Eclipse will most likely always be around. I'm not sure Aptana Studio will be. I still have to take a look at Eclipse to know if it is so much better to the point where it literally blows Aptana out of the water. I'm not entirely sure, but I will give it a try and let you guys know. Hopefully. I'm not 100% sure I'll make a video on it, but if you'd like me to make a video on it, mention it in the comment section below and I will do my best to do that. So there's that. That's website coding and development. Now we're going to go to an encoder. And what encoders do is they change the file formats for video and audio files to fit certain programs or fit certain uploading requirements or whatever, or even website requirements. And what I've learned after downloading or purchasing, I guess you could say, the Adobe Creative Suite is that they have a encoder. So let's just type Adobe Media Encoder, and there it is. You literally open it up, put your file in that you want to encode, give it a file path target, and then you click and drag what you'd like to encode it to. I'm not going to give you an example right now, but if you want me to go into more in depth about this program, I will. But it's really convenient for me as a YouTuber because I literally drag down here, and this is usually my selection right here. YouTube HD 1080p, 2997 frames. And I usually just drag that up here into the video that I'm going to encode or export it's so much easier than having to deal with the free program that I have on here, which is a fallback if I end up unsubscribing to Adobe Creative Cloud. But I'm going to show you that right now. Keep in mind, Adobe Media Encoder is freaking amazing. So, the next one would be Media Coder. Media Coder, I think, may be an open source program. I'm not entirely sure about that, but I know it's free. You don't need to pay anything for Media Coder. But with this, you literally, I'm not going to open any file paths or anything, but when you have your file explorer open, you just drag it over and it will populate a list of however many you're doing. Then down here you pick the video format, the audio format, and then the container of which you'd like to put it in. Some audio and video formats are good for certain containers, but I'm not sure if there's any restrictions that way, but I try to keep it as general as possible, so to fit the container. So there's that. Audio recording and editing is next. I use FL Studio for all of my audio producing needs, but this is a demo. It costs up to $1,000, maybe more than that, to get this with all of the demo plugins that are currently in it. Like, go to channels, add one, and it's all these. With all of these, or to get all of these, you need to purchase the one that's about $1,000, which includes all of these plugins. Otherwise, it's about, I think it's maybe $300 to purchase FL Studio itself, just straight out. And then you can add in whichever plugins you need, which is probably the route I'll be going, but I'll need to talk with their support to ask them if they'll have all of these sounds in here, because these sounds are actually very useful. If you guys want me to go more in depth about FL Studio, hit me up in the comment section below and I will. So there's that. And then a free alternative for FL Studio. It's not nearly as powerful as FL Studio, but it works. It's called Audacity. It's an open source software. I don't think I have it installed here. Let me see. Yep, I do. So Audacity is just like a really pretty cool audio recording software. And I think you can add plugins to this, but I've never done that before, and I don't really mind to because I have FL Studio and I've used FL Studio, so I won't be using this. I have it here for backup, but you know, I doubt I'll use it much. And then there's also another software that comes with Adobe Creative Cloud, which is the Adobe Audition, which is editing audio and mastering it. I'll open that up just to see what it looks like, but I've used this a little bit for speed and pitch of certain clips that I take off the internet. I haven't used this for any music production needs yet, but I hopefully will down the road, because I looked at some tutorials online and it seemed pretty promising. So as far as editing clips and making them sound a certain way and mastering and stuff like that, so hopefully I'll use it down the road more, but if not, that sucks because I have it on my computer for no reason. Hopefully I'll start using it. So there's that. Hit me up in the comment section below if you'd like me to cover any other programs that related to these categories that I have mentioned in this video, and hit the annotation on the bottom right to follow up to part 2. Thanks for watching.